Hey, you guys, we're back, and Balaam has arrived. King Balak immediately took Balaam to a high place overlooking Israel's camp because he was eager for the curse to begin. But when Balaam spoke, instead of cursing Israel, he blessed them. Frustrated, King Balak moved him to another location, hoping a change of scenery would change the outcome. Again, Balaam blessed Israel. A third attempt brought the same result. And finally, Balaam declared that Israel was divinely chosen and they could not be cursed. King Balak was furious. He dismissed Balaam without payment. However, Balaam had one final warning. Israel would one day defeat Moab. Though Balaam obeyed God's words publicly, his heart still was drawn to gain, and he would soon try to manipulate Israel's downfall through other means. Now back to the Israelites. Despite God's repeated warnings, Israel had fallen into idolatry and immorality with the Moabites. It wasn't just an individual failure, it was a national betrayal. The people had bowed before Baal of Peor, eating sacrifices offered to false gods and breaking their covenant with the Lord. God's anger burned against Israel, and a plague swept through the camp, killing thousands. They were panicking, devastation spread. As people realized the severity of their actions, the leaders wept and everything. But even in the middle of this national crisis, one Israelite boldly walked through the camp with the Midianite woman, parading their rebellion in broad daylight. It was an open act of defiance right in front of Moses and the congregation. That's when Phinehas, the grandson of Aaron, took a stand. He grabbed a spear, followed them in the tent. He put an end to their rebellion in one swift strike. At that moment, the plague stopped, and God was proud of Phinehas for his zeal. His righteous acts not only halted the plague, but also restored honor to Israel's priesthood. With the plague stopped, Israel had reached a turning point. The old generation was nearly gone, just as God had declared when they refused to enter the Promised Land decades earlier. A new generation, one that had grown up in the wilderness, was now ready to step forward. But before they could enter the Promised Land, a new census was needed. This would determine who remained, how the land was divided, and who would lead Israel into the future. Now, the story of Israel isn't just about an ancient people who kept making mistakes. It's also about us. It's easy to wonder how they could forget God's miracles so quickly and stumble into idolatry after seeing his power firsthand. But isn't that human nature? How often do we experience God's goodness only to become impatient, distracted, and tempted by something that pulls us away, right? So how often do we justify compromises thinking that they won't matter, and we only find that we move further away from God? So Israel's story is a mirror. There are struggles with faith and obedience, and remembering God's blessings aren't just their struggles, they're our struggles too. So as they stood on the threshold of the Promised Land, they had a choice to trust God fully or fall into the same patterns of doubt. And that's a choice we face today. Now in the next chapter, or the next episode 6, the torch has to be passed on, so we'll find out who becomes the new leader. Be sure to read ahead so that you know what's happening.